Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar this afternoon. This is Brett Lonsdale, and I'm going to be taking you through Lightning Forms today, and also a couple of other related products, including the Lightning List Actions and the new document generator. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining. And what we're going to do is also just go through and do some introductions to Lightning tools, to myself, and then we're going to get started with Lightning Forms using a live demonstration to build a quotation system. So we can take some SharePoint lists and transform them into a solution where we can go through and quote on products or services or whatever it is we do as a business to obviously our customers. So yeah, Lightning Tools is a company. We're based in the UK. We also have a office in Orlando, Florida. And between those two locations, we obviously develop our products, we support them, and we've got a customer service team on both sides of the pond to support our customers worldwide. And as a company, we provide lots of different products for Microsoft SharePoint, for Microsoft Teams, and of course, SharePoint on premises and also SharePoint online as well. There's some of the things that you'll see today that you can't do in SharePoint on premises, and I'll be pointing those out as we go through. But absolutely, if you do use SharePoint on premises, you can make use of Lightning Forms, and I'll be pointing out, like I said, those things as we go through it. So first of all, the portfolio of products that we offer, we've got a permissions management tool for SharePoint Online and also SharePoint on premises. This is a product that helps the business user to be able to understand who's got permissions to their content that they're managing. So whether it's inside a site, across different site collections, you'll be able to see the sharing links, you'll be able to see all your external users, and also manage those permissions as the everyday changes occur inside your business and inside your departments. We also have a content aggregation tool known as the Lightning Conductor, and this is a product that originally started off as a SharePoint list and library aggregation tool, but has grown into a product that can, as well as aggregate from lists and libraries, also build reports on Microsoft Graph content, Microsoft 365 group content, and so on. So you can build reports on Planner and OneDrive and Teams and that type of thing. We also have a discussion board tool, which is called Social Squared, and that's for SharePoint on-prem, SharePoint online, and also Teams. And besides that, we also have a data viewer. And the data viewer provides reports and data visualizations like gauges and charts and that type of thing on both SharePoint lists and also external data sources such as Excel documents or even SQL Azure databases and things like that. So the two in bold at the bottom here are the SharePoint list form design tool, Lightning Forms, and we've also got the supporting Lightning List Actions, which we'll be taking a look at through this webinar. And if any of those other products are of interest, of course, we have got some previous webinars which will go through and build examples using those. So you can find those on lightningtools.com and just click onto webinars at the top. And also this webinar is being recorded as well. So if you want to replay anything, go through the webinar again or share it with anybody, it will be available on our website as of tomorrow on the webinars page. And the speed of getting that up there depends on how many mistakes I make and how many mistakes I have to edit out. So yeah, that's our portfolio. The agenda for today, we're going to first of all just start off, for those of you that are new to Lightning Forms, we're going to just talk about what Lightning Forms is, the problems that it solves and the features that it entails, and then we're going to go through a live demonstration. As I mentioned, we've done some webinars in the past on Lightning Forms, and just to mix it up a little bit, in the past we've done things like leave booking solutions, we've done expense reporting solutions. Today we're going to create a customer quotation form. So it's going to be made up of several lists, and with it we're going to be able to create a quotation. You can adapt this to your business. It might be services or products that you want to offer. And of course, if you're not going to actually build a customer quotation system, it will show off each of the different features that the Lightning Forms, List Actions, and Document Generator have to offer. So we'll be doing that. We'll also produce a quotation document with the document generators. This is a new premium action, and I'll introduce premium actions to you as we go through the webinar as well. So this is something that you can take a form, a SharePoint list form, whether it contains sublists or not, and take that information and transform it into a Word document so that you can either share that Word document with somebody, you can obviously print the Word document, or you can save it as PDF and do whatever you want to do with that document. So I'll be showing you how to build one of those. And finally, we'll also have a look at the Lightning list actions and how you can actually apply a series of different actions to a single item or multiple items from within inside a SharePoint list. Okay, so that's the intro. So first of all, why Lightning Forms? Well, first of all, I'm sure you've probably all received these. I have the lovely Word document forms that we tend to get as attachments. These are documents that you start filling out the forms, and all of the formatting goes all over the place. So they're using underscores or whatever to actually highlight the bits that they're expecting you to fill out, and you're not sure whether to highlight that entire underscore section and overtype it or type within it and then delete all the unwanted underscore lines. So yeah, things like those Word documents we can actually transform into electronic business forms where people are actually filling out a SharePoint list. We're then collecting that information into the list, and it's a lot better to actually uniform that and the way that they complete that information. There's also paper-based forms. So somebody may send you an attachment of a form, maybe in PDF format or a physical one through the mail, and it's something that you're going to have to print. We're going to have to fill out. We're then going to have to scan it, and then we're going to have to either email it back or send it back. And all of that is really, really time consuming. And, the printers have a fun time of not scanning properly or something along those lines, which again, can also add to our frustration. There's also things like InfoPath forms that you may be looking to replace because Microsoft is going to drop support on those, and also SharePoint lists as well that kind of lack any form of business logic. You want to add the logic to them, and you're sort of exceeding the expectations of what a SharePoint list can provide you. So these are a few different reasons why you might be looking for some form of tool in order to be able to build a form inside of SharePoint, so you can collect that information and you can process it and do whatever you need to with inside your business. So Lightning Forms specifically does provide a contextual, easy to use, but powerful form design tool. So it's something that you can add easily as a SharePoint framework solution to your SharePoint Online environment, or even SharePoint on-premises environment. If you're using SharePoint 2019, you can go through and customize the list forms to add some of that business logic and also add some improved layouts to your form so you can collect that information in a better way. If you're using SharePoint 2016 as well, of course, you'll have classic SharePoint lists and classic SharePoint list forms. We do have a classic version of Lightning Forms, which is actually going to offer all of the same features that you'll see today, but it's all sort of ribbon driven and so on. It looks a bit different to what you're going to see, but feature wise, it'll be identical. And if you need any form of demonstration of that, we can certainly arrange that after today. Okay, so the different features that Lightning Forms provides. First of all, as I mentioned, it's a tool that allows you to customize the form. So the forms specifically that we're talking about are the SharePoint list forms. So in a SharePoint list, you have 3 forms by default. You've got the new form, which is used obviously to create new SharePoint list items. You also have an edit form, which is used to edit existing SharePoint list items. And then you also have the display form, which is used to read the forms or the list items. And what we can do is use Lightning Forms contextually to start designing the look and feel of those forms and also add business logic to them. So one of the challenges is to take that side panel that we get inside the modern interface and provide that into a useful business form. So with Lightning Forms, you can extend the size of that side panel. You can make it full screen. You can just make it larger if you want, but maintain that responsive design. And you can drag and drop the fields into different orders. You can have multiple columns. You can have tabs and things like that, as you'll see as we go through in just a moment. The business logic can be added as simple expressions, but also if you want to extend the capabilities a bit further, you can use JavaScript. So I'll give a few examples of that today, where we can use JavaScript to do some form of field validation and also to add some calculations to some of the different fields too. So whilst it's simple to use, it's also powerful. You can take it beyond the means of simple calculations to perform some advanced tasks. There's also styling and conditional formatting. This is something we introduced to the tool a few months back. And with that, we can apply styling whilst maintaining the theme design to the form. So maybe that you want to use some of the different theme colors behind some of the labels, or expand the size of the labels, or also even provide conditional formatting as well to provide some feedback. So I mentioned using expressions as validation, and one of the things with validation is obviously you get a little red message or something to say that you didn't fill out the field appropriately. But what we can also do with conditional formatting is highlight that field, change the color of that field, or even the tab that contains that field, and that just draws the attention to the part of the form that the user didn't fill out correctly. Yeah, conditional styling and things like that can also be part of your form design too. And also a series of actions. So you can create action buttons. You can also add form actions as well. And these can also add some form of automation to your form. So it might be that once we complete a form that we want to email somebody and let them know that we've created this list item, or maybe we want to create a update to some of the different fields, like a status field when the form gets submitted, or something along those lines. So all of these are features that we can use using Lightning Forms, and we're going to jump in to a demonstration and have a look at those right now. So I'm just going to Alt-Tab into my SharePoint online environment, and like I said, this is all going to be done using the modern experience, but if you do use the classic, then Lightning Forms can work for you as well. So we're looking at the customer quotation system, so it makes sense. I'm going to jump into my Sales Hub here. And inside my Sales Hub, I'm going to just bring up the site contents and take you into one of the lists that I've created already. Now, this list is actually based on the contacts list. It's called Quotations. At the moment, it's just a straightforward, out-of-the-box contacts list with a few additional custom columns added to it. And you can see what those custom columns are here. So we have a quotation number, we have a valid to date, we've also got a quotation status, so whether it's pending or whether it's that the business has been won, that type of thing. And we've also got a total column as well, so we can show the total value of that quotation. So as you'll see, if I hit new to create a new SharePoint list item, this is what we get by default in a modern experience. Is a nice looking, fully responsive side panel, but it does contain a lot of fields. And I've seen a lot of forms with a lot more fields than this, but as you can see, we're having to scroll up and scroll down. They all look the same. It's difficult to actually figure out what part of the form we're meant to be filling out, and there's certainly not sort of any logic to how these fields are grouped together or anything like that. So that's what we're going to use Lightning Forms to do. We're going to customize this form here, and also the edit form and the display form, so that when we open up the item or edit the item, we get the same sort of look and feel there too. So to get started with Lightning Forms, you'll notice that we've got the Lightning Forms option at the top here in every single list. So we can basically click onto that, and that will give us the option to start customizing the new form, the display form, or the edit form. What I'm going to do in this example is take this quotation list, but also combine a couple of other lists as well. So as I jump into the site contents here, I just want to show you that I've also got a quotation items. So the quotation items are the products that we're going to quote for in our quotation system. So we can basically embed that on the main form. So if you've used InfoPath in the past, you've probably used repeating panels and things like that, or repeating tables. This is the similar sort of thing. We can take another list and embed it on the main form. So we get that sort of one-to-many type relationship if you've built databases before, relational databases. I've also got a list of products, and that products list we're going to look up from. So if I just open that up, you'll notice that we've got each of the different products and whether they're supporting SharePoint 2016, SharePoint 2019, and also SharePoint Online. So we're going to look up from this, and you'll notice one of the problems is that we're going to look up from this title column, and we're going to see lots of duplications, but what we're going to do is remove those duplications by filtering on the SharePoint version that we're quoting for. Okay, so that's the scenario. So let's get designing. So we're just going to go into the quotations list once more. And yeah, as we navigate these lists, we get lots of tabs open. So I'm just going to close a few of those. There we go. And in here, we're going to click onto the Lightning Forms button. And this is where you'll see the three forms, the new form, the edit form, and the display form. So we're going to begin to customize the new form. So I'm just going to click onto customize there. And we'll start to add some design to this. So notice, as I mentioned, it's a contextual editor. We've not left the browser, we're not in a different application, and that makes it easier to actually understand what we're doing, and then we're not going to have any surprises once we've saved our changes and we go to test it. So in here, one of the first things that I want to do is actually make the form a little bit bigger. So we can do that by clicking onto the form settings in the top left-hand corner, and it gives me a few different choices as to what the initial size of this form will be. So we have a small one, just in case you do want it to be smaller than the existing side panel. We have medium, which is the default size, but I can go large or also make it full screen. And I'm going to go for a large form. And whichever one you choose, it will still remain responsive. So even if you go for a large form, if you open that up on a mobile device, it's still going to fit. You'll notice that everything will transform in order to be able to fit that screen. There's a few different display panel settings as well. So depending on the form, you can actually show things like properties and activity and user access in that side panel too. So that's useful for your display form and your edit form. All right, so that's my initial size set for the form. And of course, you'll see that in a moment. I just want to continue rather than jumping in and out to test each feature. But you'll notice this once we've built the form that it does become a little bit wider. Now, at the top of the form, I also just want to add a title. And we can do that using a bit of rich text. So when we click onto this plus, it gives me the dialogue of different things that I can add to the form. So I can go through and I can add, different fields from the list that I'm working with. I can also add additional fields if I want to. So if they're not created yet and we have a sort of afterthought, I want to create a new field in the list, I can do that. And scrolling down further, we've got things like data lookup columns. We also have other controls that we can add, things like tabs and buttons and toolbars. And we've got the other lists and libraries as well that reside inside this SharePoint site. So what we're going to start off with is a bit of rich text. So on here, we'll select the rich text. And whilst this it sort of comes across as a fairly small feature, it's something that is really useful to provide instruction on how to fill out certain fields on the form, or also as a title as I'm creating. So I'm just going to create a title here that says quotation form. And with that, you can go through and add styles and what have you, depending on how you want that to appear. So I'm just going to make that heading and center it on the form. And yeah, that's as much as I'm going to do with that, but you can use your imagination for further capabilities of it, such as inserting images and that type of thing. Beneath the heading, we're going to go through and add some tabs. So we'll go down and select the tabs here, and we can choose as many tabs as we like. So we're going to go with 4. For each tab, we can go through and configure them so they each have a name. So what we're going to do is have customer as our first one, and we can set an icon for that as well. So notice there's the ability to search different icons and so on. So we can add people and that type of thing. So we can add an icon there, and we'll do the same sort of thing for the second. So this is going to be called contact, and my icon is going to look fairly similar. I don't want to bore you with scrolling for icons, so we'll just choose an icon for that one. And then I'm going to have notes, so we can add some notes about our customer. There we go. So there may be something for notes. So yeah, there we go. So we can add one of those, and finally we're going to have the actual quotation, sort of the internal use section of our form. So I'll select an icon for that one. And yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'll just go with this one here. All right, so we've got our tabs created, and under each tab we can control how many columns we want to have displayed. So I'm going to go with 2 columns wide under the customer tab, and same for the contact tab. So we'll go through and set those. Notice we can go up to 3 columns if we want to. And then in order to get the fields in there, we just simply need to drag and drop. So we can drag the last name, the first name. In fact, sorry, these are going to go into contact. And let me just drag those. In fact, I'm just going to delete those because I'll show you how we can re-add those if we want to. Sorry, I'm going to have company under this one. So we'll have company in there. We'll also have the business phone, and we're going to also add some address details and things like that. So I can either drag them, or we can also go through and select them using that dialog as you saw earlier. So in here, I could choose things like address and add that. We can go with city and state. And where are we? And zip code, country, region, and that type of thing. So it's really simple to get the fields that you want, and then you can control the order of those on your form as well. So of course we might want to have address at the top here, followed by the city, followed by the state, and so on. So we get the information that we want under the customer tab, and then under the contact tab, we can add our first name, we can add the last name, our full name column can be appearing under there too, the email address, and so on. So we just add a few of those. So they're now appearing as we want them. And for these that I've now got duplicated, I can just simply go through and remove those off of my form. So we'll take those out. And that leaves us with the web page, which should come under customer. So we'll just drag that one up here. And we've got notes, which is going to go under notes. So note that I left this as a single column, so we can write lots of text in there. And then under the quotation tab, we can also add some other fields as well, like the quotation number, the valid to date, the quotation status, and the total of the quotation. Okay, so what we've ended up with is a form that we're not scrolling up and down as much. We can just simply fill it out in a wider form. So underneath the tabbed section, I'm going to go through and add a sublist. So this is where we're going to take another list, and that's going to be the quotation items list. So we'll scroll down, and there it is. We'll select it, and that will embed that on my form. So I can basically fill out all the customer details and the contact details, and then start to add the items that they may want to purchase in the quotation items section. And when we add that, we can go through and treat it as a sub-item. And what this basically means is I'm going to link the two together using a lookup column. So basically we have a sort of one-to-many join on a field, and we can go through and add that lookup column if we've already created one, or we can actually generate one by clicking onto the plus icon, and notice that it's going to create a field for me called lookup to quotations. So we'll add that, and that will create that lookup column for me. Okay, one of the new features, if you are already familiar with Lightning Forms, is you can also add a camel filter here as well. So these quotation items will be filtered based on that lookup column, but if you want to further filter them, then you can do. So if there was certain criteria as to what items are going to display, you can go through and add a camel filter in there as well. And there's just a few other items that we can show or hide. So whether you get a command bar, the ability to search, and that type of thing on that sublist too. So that's created. So we've now got our main part of the business form. We've got the sublist, and now I'm just going to add a button onto my form as well. So right at the very top, you'll notice that we've got the save and cancel button, which are the default options appearing on that command bar. But what I want to do is go through and add another button to the command bar. So we'll go to this command bar section, and in here we can click onto the plus, and what we're going to do is call this generate quotation. Okay, so again, we can choose an icon for our button as well as tabs. So just go choose a little money icon in here. We can control when this button is going to be visible or when it's going to be enabled if we want to. So we've got the option to do that, and we'll touch on that more in a short while. And we can also go through and configure some actions. So initially, what we're going to do is just string a series of actions together. I'm going to use this to save the form, but I'm also going to generate a quotation reference number. So in the drop-down list of actions, notice that there is a set field value, or we could also use the update list item as well. I'm going to use the set field value, and in here we can go through and choose the field that we want to update. So mine is called the quotation number. And of course, I could create a calculated column that would do this. The reason for doing it this way is I want to incorporate the ID column from the list, which is only populated once you save. So I'm doing a save, and then I'm doing a set field value. And as the value, we're going to use this template expression. Notice you've got 3 different choices here as to the type of expression that you want to build. So we could do an assignment, which assigns a calculation result to a field. We could also do a template, and the template is basically there to help you out. What it's allowing me to do, instead of doing something like this, where we could say we want to have, in fact, the word quote, we could do something that looks a bit like this. So we're adding the word quote with a dash, and then maybe adding that to the ID to keep it unique. And I'm missing a plus there. There we go. So we could do something along those lines, which, as you can see, it's actually it's missing a semicolon in there. Yeah, or we could do it as using a template. So using a template, it just makes my life a lot easier when we're building concatenations and so on. So I can come down to this template and just say, I want to use the word quote. And also I want to have the company and the ID as part of that. So I don't have to worry about adding these together or anything like that. So we'll just hit save on this one. That's going to generate the quotation for me. And then I'll add another action here, which is going to be a save, and finally a close as well. Okay, so we could also add other actions. So we can do things like show a message or something along those lines. So notice there is a show message action. We've also got a send email action and so on. These ones I've done before. So if you want to have a look at some of the other webinars and see those in play, you can do. Okay, so they're the actions for this one. So that's my new button called Generate Quotation. And just to save confusion, I'm going to go and edit the existing Save button and just call that Save Draft. So we're not actually yet creating a quotation or generating a quotation. We're just going to save it and come back to it later on, in other words. Okay, so there's the 3 buttons that we've got so far. And next, what I want to do is just add a few calculations to some of the different fields on this form. And the first one is a fairly obvious one. If you've used the contacts list before, you fill out the first name and then the last name, and then you have to actually type it all again with the full name. So what we're going to do here is just calculate that. And I'll just do the same thing again. So notice when we go into the properties of the full name field, I can set when this field is visible, when it's enabled. I can set a default value or initial value. I can create a calculated value, or I can also add some field validation as well. So what we're going to do is just add a calculated value. And again, that will take me into the expression builder, where I can use that template. And we want to join together the first name field, put a space in there, and the last name, which is actually the title column. So that's our full name field that's going to be populated automatically for us as we fill out this form. Okay, so that's that one done. The next one is just a little bit more advanced of a calculation, and that is that I want to populate this total column from each of the different items. Now, somebody may want a quote for several different items, so I want to calculate the total price for all of the items that we're quoting for and store the total amount of that quote up here. So we'll click onto the configure expressions icon again, go into calculated, and notice that as well as being able to address the fields on this form, I can actually get to the sublist as well, and I can get to the fields in that sublist. So what we want to work with is this total price column, and as I expand that, it gives me a few different aggregate functions that I can use against that column, and one of those is sum. So just simply double clicking that will allow me to grab a grand total onto my quotation. Okay, so there's just yeah, a couple of simple examples of calculations. We can do a couple of more advanced ones as well. So here we've got the quotation valid to, and what I'd like to do with this one is actually make it set it initially. So it's going to be a default value, and we're going to take a JavaScript example here because we want to actually get at today's date. So what I'm going to do is jump to function code. So there's nothing in here that will actually give me today's date. So we need to reference some JavaScript for that. So what I'm going to do is say return new date, and we're going to do an add days and add 30 days from today. Okay, so just a simple line, and that will go through and set that for me. And before you sort of save your form and create a new item in order to test this, you can actually test it at the bottom here, as long as you've created a new item, which I haven't yet. But that will actually show me what the result is, and it will give me a date, so I can see that that's working the way that I want it to. So that's our quotation valid to. Now, similarly to that, I'm going to add a bit of JavaScript to check that the email address is set correctly. So one of the challenges with forms, as I'm sure you're aware, is people don't fill out email addresses correctly. It's not a valid email address, something along those lines. And maybe we want to actually send an email as part of our solution. So we want to make sure that they have filled out this field correctly, not just filled something in, but they've actually put in a valid email. So we'll go through and configure that. And we're going to do this with the validation section here. So we'll go into the validation, and what I'm going to do is just take a regular expression, and you can go through to something called regex regex.org, I think it is, to go through and create your own regular expression. So again, I'm going to jump to some function code and just paste this in. But this is my regular expression here, which is just making sure that it contains an @ symbol, it contains a dot, it's containing letters or numbers and so on as part of that email address. And like I say, if you go to regex.org, you'll be able to figure out and test your own regular expressions. So this is basically an if statement to say that if the email field has been filled out, then it will go through and make sure that it meets this regular expression, and it's basically going to return true or false as to whether that was the case or not. So we can then display a message should that email address not be valid. So in here, I'm going to say, please input a proper email address. Okay, so there's our validation message going in there too. Okay, so that's our form so far. So what we'll do is just save and close. So that's going to save and close the design of it, and we can then go through and test it. So I'm just going to go through and create a new item. So as we click new, notice that the form is a bit wider than what we started off with, and we've got the different tabs. So we can fill out those different fields in here, as well as the quotation items at the bottom. And we've got some work to do on the quotation items form as well. But let's first of all just start this one off. So I'm going to create Lightning Tools as the company. I won't bother filling out every single field in here. Just in case you wonder, we're in a town called West Haddon, which is in the UK. And under contact, I'll put myself in here. So I'm going to put Brett and Lonsdale, and you'll notice that that full name gets populated, and I'll put in a valid email. I'll show you that failing shortly, and that'll do for those fields. I'm just going to put notes go here, so you'll see that, and there's nothing going on here except for our date. So notice that JavaScript is working, and it's setting the valid to be 30 days from today. Okay, so that's the first part of the form completed. As we come down to quotation items, I can click onto new and notice that it opens up that form. And I'm going to present a couple of problems here. So we'll just have deliver point for SharePoint Online. something along those lines, and we can choose the product, but notice that they're all duplicated because we're looking up from that first column of that lookup list. So we're not sure which deliver point to choose. So we want to be able to filter this out. And the way that we'll filter it out is by first of all choosing the version, but we need to pass that through as a filter. We're still going to be actually displaying everything in here. So we'll fix that in a moment. We can put the number of users in here, price per user, and currently this is manual, but we can calculate that as well, obviously on the form. So we'll save that one. So that creates our first list item that we're quoting for. And then I can go through and create another one, which might be lightning forms. And we can go through and select one of those. And we'll fill that out. And so we've now got our two different items that we're going to quote for. Okay, and what we'll notice is if we go back to that quotation tab, that it's actually taken this total price column and given me that grand total of 3,000. So we're aggregating that value up to the main form. All right, so that's our quotation created. The only other thing that's going to happen is when we hit the generate quotation button, that is going to save my form. I didn't need those quotation marks around the word quote, but yeah, you can see it's got quote Lightning Tools 5 in that column. So I could have gone through and removed those, but that's fine. Okay, so that's the first part of our form created. Now, obviously, if I go through and open up that item to read it, it looks just like the original without the design changes. So what we need to do is go into the new form, which we can see has been customized. And I'm going to export the design. So from here, we're just going to hit the drop down and say export form. That's going to dump that into my downloads. I can then save and close here. Go into my display form or edit form, doesn't matter which, we'll just customize those. And then just simply import from that download. So there we go, we'll just select that. And it will apply all of those changes that we made to the display form as well. Now they do remain independent. You just imported the design. So I can now make some changes that are specific to the display form or the edit form that we wouldn't necessarily want to have on the new form. For example, the generate quotation button, we wouldn't necessarily want that on the read form. So we could go through and remove it from there. I'm going to leave it there for now. We'll just save and close. And we'll go into the remaining form and customize that. And again, import our design. Okay, so that's done. We can now save and close. And you'll notice that when we open up an item, as well as creating a new item, we've got that same layout that we started off with. Okay, now, one of the things that we're going to show that is new is the document generator. So I'm just going to jump back to the slide for a second. And the document generator is actually what we're introducing as a premium action. And in the next release of Lightning Forms, you're actually going to be able to go through and create your own custom actions. So if you decide that, as well as the sort of save form action, the close form action, the show message action, or send email action, if there's something that you want to do that you want to do regularly, you can actually go through and build that as your own custom action. So you can use that in any of the forms that you create as an action button or as a series of different actions. And some of these we're also going to make available, and one of them is the document generator. So the document generator will allow me to take the information that is on this form and create it as a Word document at the moment. Now, of course, in the future, it may actually generate PDF forms or whatever. At the moment, we've done it as a Word document because then you can save it as a PDF, or you can print it, or you can even share it. And in this scenario, we wouldn't necessarily need to give a customer access to our SharePoint environment so that they can see their quotation, we actually want to give them a copy of their quotation, which we send as a Word document. So that's what we're going to do here with the document generator. And to show you the document that we're going to create, I'm just going to bring that onto the screen here. So this is a Word document. There's nothing really magical about it. It's just a straightforward Word document. But on here, notice that I've got placeholders, just like you were going to do a mail merge. And in here, we've got the fields referenced from the underlying SharePoint list. And one way of doing this is to actually go through and check those field names. So if I went into any of the forms, the display form, the new form, or the edit form, and just bring up the expression builder against any field, doesn't matter where we do this, you'll see a list of the different fields. And what we're interested in is the internal name for those fields. So you'll notice, for example, the notes field isn't actually called notes, it's called comments. My last name field isn't called last name, it's called title, and so on. And sometimes if you put a space inside some of these field names, you may see a %20 and that type of thing. So it's worthwhile just sort of hovering over some of the different fields that you've got, and you'll see the part in parentheses is the internal name that you want to use on your Word document. So when I bring up my Word document, we can actually go through and reference those. So you'll notice, sorry, let's just position that. So I've got the quotation valid to, so we can see that we've got the company name, we've got comments on there, we've got the full name, the quotation number, and then at the bottom here, we've got something going on where there's actually a table created, and inside the first row, beyond the header row, is a loop statement. So we've got the word loop followed by the name of the sublist. So that is called quotation_items. So that's the sublist, and then we're going to loop through each item that is inside that sublist and show the product name, the price per user, the number of users, and the total price, and then we're going to end that loop. Okay, so once you've created this document, we can obviously close it, and we're going to use that in one of our actions. So what we'll do is from the display form. I saw a couple of questions come in. I'll address those in just a moment, if that's okay. So I'm just going to go into the display form, and next to our generate quotation, I'm going to add another button in here, which is going to be called print and share quotation or something along those lines. And again, we could choose an icon. And we can configure an action. So the action that I'm going to use here is generate document. So we'll select the generate document action, and that allows me to upload the Word template. So we're just going to click onto that and browse out to the file. So here's my quotation template here. And that's going to go into a document library that lives inside your site. And it'll add it as a new version if ever you iterate through the multiple versions as you're refining it. We can choose then whether this is going to go against a single item or multiple items. List actions would be an example of going against multiple items. I'm just going to choose the single item in this case. And the list that I'm going against is called quotations. Now, we need to be able to reference the item, and one way of doing that is by getting the ID. So to get the current item, all I need to do is put the item ID in there. Of course, we don't know which item ID it is, so I'm just going to put the field ID, which will get it from the form that I'm on. And then we can go through and construct a file name. So the file name that I'm going to construct is going to be made up of the company name followed by the ID. Okay, so again, that will make sure that that's unique. And we could put the word quotation in there if we wanted to, and so on. So that's our generate document. So we'll save that. Now, the other thing we can do, just to point out, in here, you've got the visible expression, the enabled expression. We could make it so that you have to be a salesperson in order to be able to produce one of these quotations, or maybe you have to be a sales manager or something like that. And one way of doing that is to use a context object, and against the user, we've always had is member of group, where you could reference a SharePoint group, but in this new version of Lightning Forms, we've also got is a member of an Azure AD security group. So if you had an Azure AD security group called sales or something like that, we just need to put the name of that group in, and that button will only be available to members of that group. So for now, so we can test it, I'm just going to leave that blank. But yeah, that's something we could do if we wanted to. All right, so that's our print and share quotation. So we'll save this. I'm just going to save and close the form. We'll open up that item, and in here you can see that print and share quotation button. So as I click that, that's going to generate the document for me. So you can see here we've got Lightning Tools 5.docx, and as I click onto that, that'll open up Word. And there's our document. So it's a quotation for Lightning Tools. So this is the field that we're picking up from the form. These are the comments coming in from the notes section. It's got Dear Brett Lonsdale, so it's picked up the full name. And as you can see, it's also iterated through both items that are inside my sublist and dropped those onto the document as well, and also totaled them up here, which we've not done that calculation inside the Word document. We're just literally referencing that field called total as we went through and constructed it. Okay, so that's the type of thing that you can do with the document generator that allows you to then take this, share it, or print it, whatever you need to do with that content. Okay, so that's the document generator, and there's a couple of questions that I'm just going to address that are specific to the document generator, and then we're going to come on to list actions. So document generation, when is it available? It's available now. So yeah, as you will need to, I think, upgrade your package so you can download a new version of Lightning Forms from our website. So that is available. And is document generation an item only action, or can this be applied to multiple items in a list? So actually, yeah, I'm going to come on and show you that. So it can be applied to multiple items in the list as well using list actions. So you'll see that. And then another question is, can the printed document be a label template for mailing labels? Yes, absolutely. So however you want to lay that out, you can. Like I say, if you use one of the sort of label templates that Word provides for Avery labels or something, and then you just need to position using the double quotes around the field names that are on your form, and they will be populated with the items. All right, so yeah, the last piece of our webinar is to jump in and take a look at list actions. So this is something that was released a few months back, but allows us to actually perform actions against multiple items inside the list. And these can be items that you select, or they can be all of the items in a list, that type of thing. And yeah, maybe that you want to update field values, you want to notify users of status changes or something like that. And you can also control who's allowed to click these buttons. So again, similarly to the action button that we put inside a form, you could do that inside the command bar of a list as well, and specify who's actually allowed to see or click that button. So we're going to go through and add a list action button. So in my list here, notice that we've got Lightning list actions. So we're going to click onto that, and in here we're going to add a new list action. And so what I'm going to do is call this change quotation status. I'm sure there's probably a better abbreviation for that, but that'll be fine. I'll choose an icon. There we go, a bit of an automation with a bolt of lightning on it. Perfect. So we'll choose that. And here's our choices. So we can run against all of the items in the list, against a selected single item, or against selected items. And this basically controls when the button is going to show. So if it doesn't make sense to display the button if you select two items, then that's when you can just choose this option here against a single item, where you can select the selected items if it makes sense to apply it to multiple. So I'm going to do that one. This is where you can set your visible expression again. So if we want to make this only visible to salespeople, that's something that we could do. And then here under the configure actions is where we can go through and define those actions that we want to trigger when we click this button. Construct an action. So what I'm going to do is come down here to the update list item. So we use the update list item action, and we can choose which list this is going to be. So it could be a list on the current site or any other site. So the list that I want to update is the quotations. The ID, similar to what we did before, I can reference the list item ID from the one that's selected, basically, and we're going to update this to say quotation status is 1. So we could have won or lost a deal effectively. So that will do that, and we could also go through and print that and so on using the document generator as well, which I'll show you shortly. But yeah, I'm just going to save this one. Okay, so notice here when I select an item, so I'll select this item, click update, and what that has done is it's gone and changed this to quotation status is 1. Okay, so now I want people to be able to realize that this has been updated to 1. So what we'll do is just cancel out of that. And I'm going to go back into Lightning Forms again and just apply a little bit of styling to that field and to the tab. So you'll notice in here we can jump into the styling of every single element on the form. So as we scroll down in here, we're going to see the quotation tab, which is here. And here is the quotation status. So what I'm going to do is add a style to that quotation status field. And in here, we're going to say the quotation status is equal to 1. And if that is true, then we're going to change the field color. So this is where we can choose some of the different theme colors inside our form. And we can also set the border color as well. In fact, sorry, that was the field description. There we go. And the border color will set to red. There we go. Okay, so if we just save and close that styling, and we'll open up the item, you can see here that it's very obvious that this quotation has been won. Maybe we can turn it into an invoice or something along those lines. So if you wanted to do that, then what we could do is take the quotation template, and we can now turn this into an invoice. So what I'm going to do here is just change the wording on this to invoice, and yeah, maybe we change this to invoice number and so on and so forth. I'll save this out as invoice template. Okay, and what we're then going to do is use the list actions so that we can actually print an invoice. So in here we'll say print invoice. And this is where we can use the generate document. Again, we can upload now the invoice template. Select our quotations list. And then we can set a file name for that as well. Okay, so that should do, I think. So we'll OK that. Select our item. Notice that print invoice is actually displaying until I select something. So that was an error on my behalf. It's just changed when that gets displayed. So I need to say for selected items. There we go. So that was otherwise going to go through every single item in the list. But yeah, I can now select this and choose print invoice. So I could select multiple items. And as I choose that, that will go through and create my invoice5.docx. We can open that up and see the information on there. So it's now an invoice for Lightning Tools. Okay, so yeah, that's the type of thing that you can do with list actions. It's similar to the form actions, but you can run them against multiple selected items and so on. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes left for questions. What I'm going to do is just move the slide on. So if you have time to stick around for questions, please do. But if you don't, and you can always email me at brett@lightningtools.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and find us on LinkedIn and so on as well. But yeah, I'll address any of the questions that you might have. So one of the questions here, can you attach the quotes and invoice to the list item as well when you create the print buttons? Yeah, I suppose you could. It would take me just a moment to get my head around that. One of the things that you could do, I actually have my documents opening up, which was one of the settings. But what you can do is save them into a library as well. So you'll notice here, if I just go into the Lightning list actions and against the print invoice, and we'll edit that, configure the actions. There is the option, rather than to open in a browser, I could save to a library, and that way we can save them into a document library. You can specify the folder and all that sort of thing. There's an option there to overwrite the file, etc. So you could string a series of actions together that would perhaps then link to, you could construct a hyperlink to that item, since you know the path to the document library and you know the file name and so on. So that would be one way of doing that. There may be other ways as well, but yeah, that would be one way of doing it. So if you wanted to sort of notify, a salesperson or something like that, that the document has been created, you could choose a send email and construct a hyperlink using href or something like that, referencing that file. And yeah, I'll have a think about sending that as an attachment, but sending a link to it would certainly be possible. You've also got the option to generate script and things like that as an action as well. And maybe it's an option to create your own custom action, because this is what I was referring to at the start of the webinar, is as well as generate document, you can actually now or will be able to soon go through and create your own custom actions. So that could be something that, if you've got the capability to write that script, you could create your own custom action, so you can use that time and time again. Okay. Yeah, so via the actions. Can this be implemented on SharePoint on premises? Okay, so yeah, I mentioned that there'd be some things that you can and cannot do in SharePoint on premises. List actions is not yet available for SharePoint on-prem. The document generator, I think should be available. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so another question: how would you create a lookup field that also pulls another column without bringing in the whole list to the form? Okay, so yeah, lookup fields actually didn't demonstrate that part. So we have a lookup field in here. This is actually in the quotation items, and I did talk about one of the challenges is that this is going to bring back all of these different columns and so on. I'm not sure if it's going to be directly answering your question or not, but what I do want to do is just show a sort of cascading update as well to that column. So at the moment, you can see I'm bringing back all of these, whereas I actually only want to bring back one of each product. So we can go into our quotation items list. And against the new form in here, we'll turn that into a cascading lookup, and I'll show you some of the other lookup properties that you've got here. So I'd want the SharePoint version field to come before the product. So I can drag that up to the top here. And then under the product, as I go into the field configuration, notice in here that we can go through and apply a camel query. So this is where we could say the product SharePoint version, that's from the lookup list, is equal to the SharePoint version on this form. Okay, so that's a simple way of adding a lookup filter. There is also some other refinements that you can do in here as well, such as turn that to enhanced lookup. You can actually just remove duplicate items and that type of thing as well, if that's necessary. I know this isn't exactly answering your question, but you did trigger a thought here that I didn't show you this part, which I intended to. So if I was to just go through and create a new item in here without using the sublist, notice that I could choose SharePoint Online now, and we're only seeing those products once, which are the SharePoint Online products. So in reference to, I think what you're asking is, if I was to choose deliver point, let's say that maybe you set another column based on that, such as what is the price per user of the deliver point product. I think that's going to involve just a bit of JavaScript, and I'll reach out to our support team to see if that's something we can help you with. But yeah, that's something that's not as easy to do as just setting a property. But yeah, you could go and pass through the item that you're looking for and obtain that with a bit of JavaScript, I'm sure. Okay. And can you add it to the attachments column of the quotation list item? So the generated document, I presume, again, I don't think there's a straightforward way of doing that. I get what you're saying. So can you attach the generated document by clicking to add attachment here? Of course, once it's been generated, we could. At the moment, it's just generating as a separate document in a document library. I think the easiest way would be to construct a link to that file, as opposed to creating it as an attachment to a list item. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we've got so far. Like I mentioned, if there are any other questions, please feel free to drop us a line, brett@lightningtools.com. I will follow up on those other ones that we mentioned. And yeah, and like I said, the webinar was recorded. So if you want to replay any of this, I am aware that we sort of rushed through a lot of things in the hour, but yeah, you can watch that back if you want to. And if there's any further information that you want, if you'd like a private demonstration, you can always arrange that via our website. Just book a demo with us, and we can go through some specific needs that you might have as well. All right. So on that note, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and I hope it was valuable to you and your requirements. All right. Many thanks.